So meantime, there are a lot of Americans who are reacting to this stunning collapse of the Republican health care bill, and many voters who support Obamacare are rather relieved that efforts to repeal and replace that law failed. Here is what some are saying.
I'm happy with the existing Obamacare as it stands. I think they need to focus on bigger issues and, keep this plan going.
It's a defeat for the Republicans.
I feel that it's a minor victory, but I feel that we need to continue to press and continue to stay organized.
It's kind of like karma. They're rushing everything. They're not really thinking it through.
All right, let's talk more about all of this with CNN political commentators Mike Shields and Ben Ferguson. Good to see both of you. So, Mike, this Quinnipiac poll that was actually out before this bill was, yanked, shows that the disapproval rating of that GOP plan was very high, 56%. Is it your feeling that there was so much at stake, not just for Paul Ryan, but also for President Trump, in terms of whether they should have allowed people to vote for it or not?
Well, they pulled it because it wasn't going to pass. And I think the math in the House of Representatives is the math. And it's going to be the same math, by the way, for tax reform, for an infrastructure bill, for debt ceiling. You're going to have a continuing resolution to fund the government, which will include payment of the insurance subsidies for Obamacare. So you're going to continue to see this sort of problem. And I think it was very interesting seeing what the president said yesterday, which was maybe he's going to start looking to work with Democrats to isolate the Freedom Caucus and work with Democrats to get legislation passed. Because the fact of the matter is, there's about 30 members in the House, and if you can't get them on board, they sort of control the agenda. And that's not to criticize them. They're playing the hand that they are dealt. They're given a position in the House Freedom Caucus to be able to stop things, and they're using the power that they have to push their agenda. And you saw what happened. And so I think this will continue. By the way, I think Obamacare will still keep coming up as an issue in American politics. The House of Representatives and the president will have to keep addressing issues of Obamacare. I disagree with some of what Athena was saying, that Obamacare is just fine. 500,000 people just dropped out of Obamacare. 1/3 of all the counties in our country now only have one insurance provider. And so, the bill is unpopular. Obamacare is unpopular, and it's going to continue to be unpopular, and it's going to continue to go down, and so we're going to have to continue to deal with it.
Well, that's being disputed by, some of the CBO reporting that Athena was citing, and even Standard & Poor's, where it may show that while there has been an increase in, say, Arizona by 116%, that is not across the board, and, there's some real, conflict with what the president was saying, that, 40, 50, 70% increases. That's not necessarily the case. It hasn't been substantiated. So there are some problems that is being acknowledged, but I guess the real criticism we're hearing from so many is, why not just work on those areas as opposed to trying to overhaul the whole thing? And that was the mistake this plan does.
Let me say this. You do need an overhaul here. I'm one of those that actually is on Obamacare. Last year we had 2 companies and 7 plans to choose from. This year we had 1 company and 1 single plan to choose from. The card that's in my wallet is meaningless because it's a $13,000 out of pocket before I get any benefit for my family. So I do have insurance. But what good does it do me when I go to the doctor? Unless I have a catastrophic injury or I get cancer, heaven forbid, or something like that, my insurance every year, it's really hard to get to $13,000. And I'm not the only American that's like this.
When you say what
good
does it do me, you're saying you can go to the doctor, but you're talking about your out-of-pocket expense.
I'm out of pocket. I'm out of pocket until $13,000 comes out of my own pocket until insurance kicks into my plan for my family. So I went to the doctor, great example, about a week and a half ago for a cold.
But you didn't have insurance,
and they said,
and you had a procedure that was $80,000, $90,000 or $100,000, that would be out of pocket.
But here's the thing. Up to $13,000. Then I'm still accountable for another 20% on top of that. So my insurance that is costing more than $1,000 a month for my family is meaningless insurance until there is something catastrophic. I had shoulder surgery. My shoulder surgery did not cost even what the deductible would cost, for example. So this is a bipartisan issue. It is a problem whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. The real question now is going to be when we have recess, coming up April 7th is when they have it scheduled, and all these members of Congress go home, including those in the Freedom Caucus, are they going to take a lot of heat? And I think the answer is yes. I don't think we're done on Obamacare repeal and replace from the Republicans. I think there's a lot of Americans that are going to be very upset that this didn't happen, and they're going to get in the face of their congressman. They're going to come back to Washington and go, okay, guys, we probably got to do something later this year.
So is the issue, Mike, that perhaps not enough time was spent on trying to craft this GOP deal, that you didn't see the president out really promoting it in terms of detail? You saw Paul Ryan trying to promote it, with, pie charts, trying to promote it, but you didn't see enough leadership from the president, and that is among the lessons that the president just yesterday admitted to learning.
No, I actually don't. I think the president leaned into this. I think he was really committed to making phone calls and pulling members over, and it eventually came down to one thing. He was facing up with the House Freedom Caucus and trying to get them to vote for the bill, and they wouldn't do it. And that's going to keep happening. There's a group of members, and again, they're right. They're elected members of Congress, and they have carved out a power niche for themselves to kind of control the agenda in the House.
Did it embolden them, empower them even further, so it might be difficult for the president to tackle his tax reformers, $1 trillion
I think that I agree with what Ben said. I think that remains to be seen of how much did they bear responsibility for stopping us from getting rid of Obamacare, because they were out there pretty publicly saying that they were going to vote no on this, and reports have said that that's what the final deal came down to, was between the president and them, and were they going to vote for it, and they said no.
Here's the other thing.
Yeah, Ben?
Conservatives are going to look at the Freedom Caucus, and they're going to look at them as champions for what they truly wanted, which was a total repeal and replace. However, if the president comes back to the table with Democrats to try to get a deal done, and you realize that the overhaul is going to be much worse than what you had the option of, there's a lot of level-headed conservative voters that voted for Freedom Caucus members that are going to say, you guys need to get in the room with the president and get the Democrats out of the room, because we'll take a better deal with you guys being involved than having to pull Democrats and what they want on a really Obamacare light or Obamacare 2.0. I do think they rushed this.
Yeah.
If there's any advice I would have for the White House, it would be this.
Okay.
It would be, look, slow down, talk behind the scenes, don't make enemies, court the Freedom Caucus, keep the dialogue open. This arbitrary date of this week, I think, was a bad decision from Paul Ryan. I think the White House went along with what the speaker said. I think they should have taken more time to do this.
So we also heard the president, place some blame on the Democrats. We also understand, based on a source telling CNN, that Trump is also very upset that his son-in-law and senior advisor Jared Kushner was on vacation, along with his wife, there in Aspen during this crucial week, as opposed to being in Washington. There you see the family photo of them skiing, in Aspen. So, Mike, is this reported, anxiety that the president was feeling, does this speak to how much the president wants to be able to lean on his advisors, particularly in such a crucial or critical time?
Well, look, I think the entire White House was engaged in this fight. I think that Budget Director Steve Bannon, Reince Priebus, they were all up on the Capitol working with members, working out of the Speaker's office. I agree with what Ben said. They're going to have to continue negotiating with the Freedom Caucus. They're in that position on all the rest of the legislation that they want to get done, whether it's tax reform, infrastructure. The math is still the same math, and they're going to have to keep working on it. But look, I think the president was committed. I think the administration was committed, and they ran up to something that we've in politics have known for a while now, what the math in the House is, which is that you have a group of members that have the ability to do this, and they're going to have to figure that out to move forward.
Look, okay, but you avoided the question about whether he was upset or feeling real anxiety that Ivanka and Jared were not there. So Ben, is that an indicator?
I mean, Well, no. Look, I put a big asterisk by that information coming out that the president was upset with his son-in-law and his daughter over this. If the president of the United States of America couldn't get this done, it's not like Eric Kushner was going to come back into the White House and somehow find the votes needed. I mean, they were probably 20 votes down here. There's no way that he would have done this. Yes, this is a week where all hands are on deck, but let's also put it in perspective. There was nothing that any single staff member at the White House would have been able to do to flip this vote. They were not close on the votes they needed, and even the president couldn't get you to decide to do it. It's not like a senior advisor calling you would somehow flip your vote.
All right, we'll leave it right there. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Ben Ferguson, Mike Shields,
Thanks.
appreciate it. All right, still to come.